Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, we are going to be making very fundamental changes into our system of government that will impact on generations to come. It is only fair that we give it the utmost thought and not think about the political expediency of the day, but think about, for posterity, how this country is going to be. Mr. Speaker, I had said this somewhere else. I was in this house myself, in the 7th Parliament, pushing for a constitutional agenda, rewriting the Constitution, a new Constitution, and saying that it must come from Wanjiku. It must come from the ordinary people out there. At that time, our head of state, the late Moi, I was in the opposition, was wondering why 222 educated, elected leaders of this country would want to surrender the role of thinking for the future of this country to somebody who's out there in the streets who is either roasting maize or who's either doing a small thing there. I had a problem with that, but now I never thought that was going to bite me again and come back to us. I am convinced that we made a mistake and we should have listened in part, not in totality, to that late sage and listened to his ideas. None of the American 37 constitutional amendments that were done in the US did require a referendum. Personally, I am convinced, by and large, except in matters that touch on very pertinent issues in 255 of the, I think 255 of the Constitution, this House has the capacity and the powers to amend any Constitution and do a lot of work on the Constitution. When we were trying to put this Constitution together, rewrite it, this Constitution we have today, in terms of the governance, whether it's going to be a presidential system or it's going to be a parliamentary system, became a victim to the political intrigues of that day. There was a split within my party, which was called ODM that time, and then there was this other group which had advocated for a devolution that was going to be 13 or 14 different regions in the country, based pretty much on the way the provinces were then, plus a few provinces that were super big and that were going to be split into 3 or 2. And then there were those people who were opposed to devolution completely. Then there was the issue of parliamentary and presidential system. Both of them became victims to the political intrigues of that time, where there was a lot of political infighting, both within ODM and also other centers. Mr. Speaker, we had a system that was a hybrid of a presidential system and a parliamentary system. We had a president who had a constituency, and people went and voted for their president of choice. But that president came in here to be sworn in as the MP for Odaya, as the MP for Baringo Central, as the MP for wherever he wanted. And if he failed to secure the presidential votes, he will still come to the parliament as a member of parliament for that constituency and lead the opposition from here. Lead the opposition from here. We had a system in which the ministers were from parliament. And because they were from parliament, we could censure them. I remember one day sitting on that chair, Mr. Speaker, and I sent 8 ministers out of the House because they did not come up with satisfactory answers that is, in the opinion of the House, and in my opinion also, satisfactory and befitting their status in the country and the manner in which they should represent, how Kenyans should be governed. And I told them, you're not going to transact any more business until you come up with answers that are going to satisfy this House. And the president told them, do you know what you have done, you people? When this kind of thing happens, that government resigns. That is a censure motion on the government because you did not do your job right. And Kibaki warned his own ministers and told them, you go to Parliament, Parliament is supreme, Parliament has got that, you must attend to the issues on Parliament and act accordingly and fast enough on issues that are raised by members of Parliament. Today, you have ministers who we don't even know their names. I don't know most of them their names now. And during our time when we were growing up, people like the MP for Kwanza, who is an old guy like me, although he pretends to be young and dyes his hair. You remember we used to have all the ministers, cabinet ministers in primary school on our own walls there. And we knew all the names of all the ministers in the country. And you knew the ordinary person out there in the village knew if they had issues with education, that minister must do something better than he's doing now. And when the delegations come to Gatundu, the ordinary people used to come and complain about such and such minister is sleeping on his job. We have a problem in education. We have a problem in roads and infrastructure. We have a problem in public works. We have a problem in local government. And that is why the late Mudavadi was such a famous guy. He was bigger than life because local government is the area where all the country was represented. Municipalities, county councils, town councils, urban councils. My position is, we cannot bring in 20 strangers into the house and call them ministers that you have no powers to censure them. You can't tell them get out of the house and don't come back to this house until you're able to do your job right. How are you going to censor a minister who does not come with a satisfactory answer here? A minister who's sleeping on the job. Based on the proceedings of the house at that time, I think what we need to do is that we have to admit that we made certain mistakes. We borrowed from the German lander. We borrowed from the Americans something. We borrowed something from the British. And then we tried to put together that thing for it to work. We are always people who want to borrow. I mean, we Africans must come up with our own narrative. It's like saying you have a car with an engine of Audi, with the chassis of Mercedes, and with a body of, and what do you call it, electrical system of Toyota. How far will that car take you? It can't take you. This constitution is similar to that. We need to revisit that.